I think I've done this one. I've told you guys this before a couple of times, but I think this is a good way to end the stream today, and I just want to talk about this. So, if you are heading in from Kata into MOP, and you want to know what will be the meta, you want to know, is my class good? Is my class stackable? Is it over? Yada yada. There are a few different sources you can use to answer this question. Right now, nobody is playing MOP, so we can't know for sure. So everything is based on what you would call an educated guess. But these guesses can be more or less biased and based on more or less sources. And I will now try to make a case for the idea of triangulation when you're trying to make up your mind into seeing into the future. So what different ways do we have to know what is going to be good in MOP? Well, we can look at the things we can use to look at what is good currently. And what is good currently is often decided by sims, right? We have a very functioning sim. And this sim doesn't have a one-to-one. I can just do like this. Sims aren't a one-to-one reality of what the game actually looks like. Because let's say I sim a fight that is 240 seconds. And then I find a fight in Kata that is 240 seconds. But this fight also has ads, it has some downtime, blah 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 blah. Then these two things aren't really comparable. So what Sims can do is that Sims can maybe not give you the exact number, but Sims can give you a number that is relative to other classes working within the same sandbox. So the argument here is that if you have a sim as a source, you have a huge sandbox. This is the sandbox. This is not WoW. This sandbox right here, where you're doing all of these tests, that's not World of Warcraft. This is something else. This is using the mathematical rules, the physics of the game that we love, but it is not World of Warcraft. And this is important to understand. So what Sims can help you do is that it can turn classes into ordinal data. So if you have a spectrum, everybody here knows what a spectrum is. You can have worst, and you can have the best. And you can run the sim for all of the classes that you want to know. And you get one class that has 100k, one class has 96k with the same fight settings, one class that has 108k. What this creates is that you can start putting these on a bar, right? You have some classes that will perform over here, you have some classes over here. And you can have an ordinal data of the classes. You can create a ranking of the classes. That is the idea anyway. But like I said before, if you want to figure out about MOP, and we're saying that sim is one way to try to predict the future, then your best option is something called SimC. And SimC is good, but it has some glaring issues. The number one issue with SimC is that the game may not have been changed that much from when the SimC was created, but the APL is very... I will just do an XD, because it is very hard to create the rotation that you could have in a modern sim. It's not as refined, and some classes are just GG. Like, some classes are almost impossible to sim, and that makes the entire idea of ordinal data from sim not really that good. Okay, so SimC is one way. What other ways do we have to know what's good in MOP? Well, one way is we look at the second best we have. We look at private servers. So when you look at MOP private servers, depending on the scripting on the MOP private server, it can be more or less a one-to-one to what classic MOP is gonna be like. SimC is not a one-to-one, but neither is private servers. Private servers has their own quirks, Some classes on MOP private servers are barely functioning. Like, I think, is it Mistweaver Monk that is just unplayable on almost every single MOP private server, etc, etc, etc. And then some stuff like snapshotting or pet behaviors or some talents might be completely bugged. But regardless, you can look at private servers. Now, the thing with private servers is that they have a very... How do I write this? If this is retail... If this is MOP in 2012, private servers is this guy. Like, MOP is just such a small private server scene. So if you look at this guy and you want to look at what is he doing, what is working for them, you are basically looking at what is called the croaking frog down the barrel, or down the fucking thing. So down here you have a guy screaming croak. And that's a huge problem, because people that play on MOP private servers, not only is their scripting not 100%, the players themselves have huge disparities in player skill. Like, on MOP privates, let's take a class. Let's take my class, because that's the one I know. Enhancement Shamans. And then you look at how many they are, and there's like 30 people. There's 30 Enhancement Shamans raiding on Stormforge that gets ranked. Like, the rest of them, I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but they're 30. And then you're supposed to make like a distribution curve between the best and the worst. So here are the worst, and here are the best. Then if the data was normalized, most of these 30 would fall within these two standard deviations. But the thing is that on MOP private servers, you have no idea if there's like 5 people that are really fucking good, or if there's 25 people that are really fucking bad. It is never normalized. And this is a huge problem, because let's say the very, very best Enhancement Shaman, the number 1 NA Shaman on MOP private servers, is only because he is better than 29 absolute. Okay, I was about to say the R word, but I am instead gonna use the non-controversial word. Slightly less gifted people. Like, just because you are rank 1 on a private server and you beat 29 other people, if those people are really bad, that means nothing. So the only way for me to trust a MOP private server Enhancement Shaman is if if I can get a VOD, and if I can get a log, and if I can talk to the number 1 guy. Because I can ask him questions and I can review all of these things from the number 1 guy. And I can tell you that when I am looking at if there is a VOD, which there almost never is, they are, even if they are a top private server player, they are like 80 parsing in Classic. When I look at their logs and they are rank 1, I find so many bad globals, and it can be the spell queue, it can be the scripting. I'm not flaming, I'm just saying that their logs are terrible. And when I talk to them, they have very good confidence. Like, they speak like they understand the fucking game. But I mean, I appreciate the confidence, but at the end of the day, you are the number 1 scoring player in Sunday League football. Like, this is not the big leagues. Okay? You're not that guy. So, if you're trying to understand the MOP meta, you probably want to look at Sim, and then you want to look at SimC data. You want to look at private server data, which is done through looking at This is ordinal data. This is qualitative data. And some sort of quant data if you can quantify it by looking at logs, but not really. Then you have some other ways to figure out the meta. One way to figure out the meta is looking back in time. So this is an hourglass, right? What the fuck? This makes no sense. Anyway, you go back in time. So what you do is that you go back to 2012. So we are in 2025, and what you can do then is that you can read Elitist Jerks, because MOP was probably one of the real first expansions where there was a lot of cool theory crafting. Like, if you go back in the time machine and look at it, you can find some really cool resources. I have a couple of other ones. For enhancement shamans, there's a play called Totem Spot that is awesome. That has a lot of cool written stuff. What else did I find that was really good? I think those are the two ones where I found the most cool stuff. You can actually go to Warcraft logs. Warcraft logs have stored MOP logs from back in the day that you can also look at. So all three of these resources are actually really interesting. So, should we trust the Enha Shamans of 2012? Should we trust them? And the answer is not quite. Because the Enha Shamans back then, we know that Lich King 0% was unkillable to the best players in the world back in 2010. But when it came out in Classic, we have learned from the history and we have access to resources that they didn't have. We have better computers, we have weak auras, we have tools to help us. So the best WoW players today are just so much better than the best WoW players of 2012, just because we just have access to so much more knowledge than they do. We don't have better reflexes, we're not more dedicated, we're not more intelligent. We just have way more knowledge. And we have more tools to help us. So I think while Elitist Jerks are cool, Totem Spot is awesome, Warcraft logs back then, you can look at that. You also have something called... So if you take MOP back then, and you have the start of MOP and you have the finish. So here you have Siege of Orgrimmar, and back here you have tier 14 or something. And here in the middle you have TOS, I think that's what it's called, tier 15. Here you have what you would call progressive patching. And this is something that is very different between playing MOP in 2012 and playing it today. That nowadays we don't have progressive patching. We might have a slight intervention from Blizzard where they decide to like fix a tiny little thing. But progressive patching back then could mean huge shifts in the meta. So here the meta could change. Here the meta could change. Then it could change like 3 times over the course of a couple of days, and then never change again. Whereas for you and me, we are just gonna get this. Because I think Blizzard is completely fucking hands off. Meaning that we are probably gonna get the meta that is the final meta. The idea behind playing on the final meta of an expansion is that, well, back in 2014 or whatever, this is the meta that Blizzard decided on. It's probably the best, right? They had all of this time to arrive at this one. So this one has to be the best. So that is the one that we're gonna give people in 2025. The problem with this mindset is that if you would just take this meta right here in Siege of Orgrimmar and just put it at the start, who knows how that shit is gonna work? Because a lot of the meta from back then was based around a certain item level, and here you have like far less item level. So you can't just take the final meta and be like, oh, this is the final product, good luck, have fun. Because it's not always a good choice. SimC, we have private servers, we have go back in time. I'm just gonna type it as 2012. You know what else happened in 2012 besides the release of Mists of Pandaria? It also coincides with the Mayan death calendar. This is the year that the Mayans thought that the world was gonna end, but instead we got pandas in World of Warcraft. Isn't that funny how the prophecies work? Let's see, so we have these different ones, and then you have what I would like to call the prophets. So, the prophets, I guess, is people like me. So, let's say you have done your research and you have looked at SimC, check. You have looked at the private server meta, check. You have looked back in time what used to be the best, and now you are finally ready to go and talk to the knowledgeable people, the experts, the people that are the shit. They should know what they're talking about. And I think a lot of people, they just completely skip this part. They just like, I'm just gonna assume that Anfal has done his due diligence, right? Anfal probably has checked this. He's probably has done this. He's probably done this. So if I just go to Anfal or whatever other house prophet you might have, he's just gonna be your shortcut to knowledge. And the problem with the prophets is that, number one, dumb AF. So, let's be honest. How many WoW content creators are actually critical of their own understanding about the meta? They're dumb as fuck. They are biased. They are emotional. They are content slaves. Meaning that if I give you guys an example, let's say you come to me and you ask, Anfal, how good is Affliction Warlock in Mists of Pandaria? Let's say I have an idea about this. First off, I don't have to give you any source for my claims. You're just gonna take me at face value. You're not gonna ask me to link you anything. You're just gonna be like, oh, Anfal said it, Affliction Warlock is X, Y, and Z. You're never gonna ask me to name a source. Number two, maybe I have an interest in producing content that is entertaining rather than educational. So, I am of the opinion that getting educated can be incredibly entertaining. But most people think that education is something you do in school. I want to be entertained. I want to have fun. Entertain me. React harder. So if I want to give you guys a quick answer, I can just be like, yeah, Affliction Warlock is like really good. So what many content creators do, so if you are one of the prophets, again, people come to you and they ask you for your advice to predict the future. How do you respond to them? So what most prophets do is that they create this. S, A, B, C. They create a tier list. And they put class number, they put Enna Shaman here. And they put Hunter here. The thing is that, what is a tier list really? Now, the tier list is very self-explanatory, that it's better to be up here than being down there. But that's not really how we play World of Warcraft, is it? Let me just pull up a tier list for MOP. Let's go to YouTube and just go like this, MOP tier lists. I'm sure people have done this. Scott J, top 3 melee DPS in my opinion. What is the most optimal comp? Tier list DPS for Panda Classic. Okay, here. 50,000 views, by the way. 50k views. That is more views than anything I've made, I think. So, you have this guy talking.
People in my comments mentioning that they have doubts on what they should be picking for this expansion. So
Thank you for being a prophet. And slowly but surely, he keeps putting these icons on his screen, and he's yapping,
The best
right?
classes to play. In terms of raw damage, I would play that here in S tier, definitely.
And he's talking. Like, it's up here, it's down there, blah, 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 whatever. The problem is, this is not how you play World of Warcraft. Okay, so you watch the entire video, and you're like, okay. Now, what raid comp do I play? Because you look at this and you're like, okay, Warlock, Hunter, Shaman, Rogue, Mage. Okay, so how many Rogues do I play? How many Palas do I play? I have no idea. And this is the problem with tier list, is that this is not how you play World of Warcraft. Because World of Warcraft isn't all about you. It's about the raid DPS. So I think that prophets that use tier lists, you should just avoid this. This is complete slop, dude. This is slop. This is brain rot. This, you will not learn anything. And most of the time, these people don't cite any source. They are just prophets. You should just take whatever they say at face value. It's bullshit. It's unbelievably stupid. Another form of a prophet that I see a lot is that you should listen to a prophet because of their accolades. This is an accolade, by the way. So this is rank 1. This is somebody that has a medal on their chest. So just because somebody is rank 1, you should assume they know what they're talking about. Rank 1 equals smart. Now, the problem with this is that is completely factually untrue. There is absolutely no correlation between predicting the future and being good at World of Warcraft. Again, let's go to the All-Star page currently. All-Star page for Enhancement Shamans. Rank 1 is Yeb. Like, Yeb is theory crafting a lot. He is in the Shaman Discord. He has a well thought out process for most of the things that he does. He is a very reflective person. He is, in my opinion, the guy to ask, why do you do what you do? Then you have this guy. This absolute idiot, bro. If you ask Anfal, why do you do what you do? And I say, I don't know, I'm kind of vibing. Why should you listen to this guy? This guy is completely stupid. Like, this guy is dumb as fuck. So, just because somebody has gotten world firsts, rank 1s, parses, that doesn't mean that he's intelligent or can predict the future. So, don't look at somebody's accolades and be like, okay, this guy is probably smart because he has been rank 1 before. No. No. You should listen to what the prophet is saying and don't care who is saying it. You should take it as face value, criticize the sources, and listen to the logic that they present. Now, let's say you have found a prophet and you're like, damn, this guy is really spitting. This guy is really fucking smart. He says argument A. He follows it up with B. This is so smart. And now we arrived at C, and that's why we should do D. This guy is so fucking reasonable. He is so eloquent. He is so smart, bro. The thing is that appearing as reasonable, eloquent, and smart is only a relative skill. The only way for somebody to appear reasonable, eloquent, and smart is if they are more reasonable, eloquent, and smart than the person listening to them. So just because somebody appears to fill these 3 criteria, this actually says more about you than it says about what they actually said. Because this is not a systematic way to present information. I can be completely biased and sell you on the idea of almost anything. But if I don't have data to support what I'm saying, maybe the entire premise for my B is just false. Like, this is a false assumption. Maybe my C argument is just a misunderstanding. But it sounds smart because Anfal is so well spoken and so smart, and he is a university teacher and stuff. I'm dumb as fuck, bro. You shouldn't listen to me. So, SimC, privates, go back in time, and profits. I've talked about why you shouldn't listen to any of these, but also kinda that all of them offer a different type of knowledge. Like, not everything the prophet says is wrong. Not everything from 2012 is a misunderstanding or stupid. Not everything from private servers is inaccurate. Not everything from SimC is stupid. But the truth is that you want to have, I'm gonna call it, you want to have, like, if this is SimC, and this one is private server knowledge, and this one is 2012, this one is the prophet, you want to have your opinion based on more than 2 of these at the same time. Like, if you find an argument that only the prophet is saying, like, oh guys, enhancement shamans, you're gonna play like 8 enhancement shamans, the class is so fucking good. Nobody does it on privates. The sim doesn't really support it. Nobody did it back then maybe the prophet is fucking cooked. Okay? But if the prophet would say that I think that enhancement shaman is the weakest in tier 14 and then gets more and better, and in tier 16 they're really good. And then you look at 2012, it's like, yep, true. Private servers agree, yep, this is accurate. SimC shows that it's climbing the rankings. Then you have something that is fulfilling even 4 of the criterias. Maybe the prophet isn't stupid. But it's also not really a controversial take, is it? So yeah, this was pretty much all I wanted to say on the idea of triangulating on how to predict the future of the meta. That I think the true meta lies somewhere within all 4 of these. You can't find out the meta by just adhering to one of these sources of information. And then we, of course, have the big, what do you say, the big question mark here. And this is the one that Nota, Newman, Progress puts a lot of effort into, and that is the mystery box. This one right here, nobody knows. And everybody is trying to predict based on these other 4 sources what they should be spending time on the PTR. And then the PTR is gonna funnel that shit and distill it, and that is gonna be the meta in the end. I don't think the meta in the race to world first has been wrong. Can you guys think of a single time where the meta in the race to world first didn't turn out to be pretty fucking accurate?